mitosis. This is going to be an introduction to mitosis, a basic introduction. If you understand what I teach you today, you're going to understand not only mitosis, but later on meiosis as well. This is very simple. It's how one cell in your body, with all its DNA, turns into two cells in your body. How does your cell clone itself? So here's your cell, and it's got to double everything and then put a copy in each new cell. So this is your cell just dividing into two. I have a super cool video of a salamander that I'll show you in class. That's mitosis. One cell doubles everything, splits into two. If we were going to double you, we would have to double your noses, double your ears, double your legs, double your arms, double your eyeballs, double your head, and then we would split you in half and there'd be two of you. This original one doesn't exist anymore. We are definitely going to focus on the DNA itself. So the cell has to double everything. It has to double its mitochondria, endoplasmic reticulum, all that stuff. You get the idea, but we are going to focus on just how it doubles the DNA. If you remember, we're not really going to talk too much about the actual molecule doubling. We're going to talk about how it doubles when it's all condensed into this form. In your cell, your DNA is just floating around, it's loose, and it doubles at that time. It unzips, and two blobs come in called DNA piece putter-oners or polymerase, and these are putting on new pieces. And you end up with two exact identical strands. One will be for one cell. You can see it starting here. One will be for another cell. And they don't want to make any mistakes here, otherwise the cell won't work. We're not even focusing on that. We're actually focusing on when the molecule has already doubled, then it wraps around these little histone proteins, and it gets into this shape. And at this point, we're just seeing, okay, we've got 46 of these, right? 23 from mom and 23 from dad. We've got to split these perfectly and put a copy in each cell. And if we mess that up, the cell won't work. So you've got 46 of those little books of these that constitutes all your DNA, tells you everything you ever wanted to know about yourself. We've got to double it and put a copy in each cell. When the whole cell is going to divide, it'll organize itself so that it's not loose everywhere, like loose threads of hair. Instead, it'll get organized into these. This almost reminds me of putting hair in a braid. It's much easier to separate hair if you braid it first. Like, let's say we cut off the braids of 14 students. We threw them out all onto the field, and we had to double them and split them evenly. Well, that would be really hard to do if each individual strand was loose on the field. So we put them into braids so you can just grab it and move it. And that's what this is. It's just a bunch of DNA clumped into a braid so that we can make sure when we move it very carefully. And again, each cell needs a copy. One chromosome would look like this. I'll give you an example. I'll just say maybe this is chromosome number 3. When you double it, I'm going to say this is 3 from your mom, because you also have a 3 from your dad. If you double it, your cell will put a little rubber band right here and pull these together. So now I've got a copy for one of the cells, that'll go here, and then I've got another copy that's going to go into here. But I put a rubber band in it so that I can make sure that I've got this super organized. Your cell likes to be organized. But the weird thing about that then is that this looks like an X for a little while. It only looks like an X while the cell is doing this process. Otherwise it's loose and it's not in a braid. So this is number 3 from mom with that little belt holding it together right here. You have another one from dad, and so you'd actually have 2 of those that look like that for number 3. Let's draw your cells. Here's your nucleus. And you've got all your DNA. Here's a number 1 from your mom. Here's a number 1 from your dad. Here's a number 2 from your mom. Here's a number 2 from your dad. Here's a number 3, and so on. I'm not going to draw 46, but you've got a bunch of these. You can call them chromosomes. You can call them books, like Harry Potter has 7 books. and you'd have the whole story. Weirdly, you've got your whole story twice. You've got a version of it from your mom and a version of it from your dad. So you've got 23 from mom, 23 from dad, 46 total, like books of DNA, and you got 23 from your mom. And this is number 1 through 23. And then you got another number 1, another number 2, another number 3, all the way to 23 from your dad. This is mom's version of you, and this is dad's version of you, and they battle it out. For example, I'm going to use chromosome 19. Here's 19. On chromosome 19 is your blood type. You get 2. 1 from your dad, 1 from your mom. Well, you might be thinking, I don't have 2 blood types, I only have 1. The relationship between these two is very interesting. Sometimes they battle, one wins. Sometimes they battle and you see both. Maybe your mom gave you type A and your dad also gave you type A. Well, then you're type A no matter what. But sometimes, like, your mom might give you type A and your dad could have given you type O, and they'll battle it out and A wins and you've got type A blood, even though you're secretly holding type O as well. You just don't realize it. So this is a chunk of DNA. That's called a gene. If I were to draw 19 doubled, like I was trying to show here, so if I were to do that here, I'd end up with this one doubled. And remember, I told you they hook up with a little belt. Still 19 from dad. I have to double it because this cell needs a 19 from dad. This cell needs a 19 from dad. This cell needs a 19 from mom. This cell needs a 19 from mom. When you're done, you should have 1 of each, just like you started with, 1 of each. So the moment you see things in X's, that's only because they're going to rip apart and you're going to get organized before you place 1 of each in each cell. So this right here, for a hot second, it's basically you've got 4 chromosome 19s. But that's only while your cell is dividing. So for a cell, it has this full big life, which we call the cell cycle. And within it, it will do this mitosis at some point where it copies everything and doubles itself. And that's really what we're going to be talking about right now. There's something called interphase, then there's prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase, and then there's cytokinesis.
Cell division is required for an organism to grow, mature, and maintain tissues. During the mitotic phase, a cell will undergo mitosis to form 2 new nuclei, and then divide to form 2 new individual cells during cytokinesis.
Interphase is just your cells doing normal cell stuff. This is you being alive and like your cell is doing what it's supposed to do. Also, all of your DNA is loose and we copy it here. This is where this is happening. You unzip it, copy everything. It is not in a braid though. When your cell is ready to actually divide, it's going to put it in a braid, line everything up, and literally make sure each cell gets 1 of each braid. So this part right here is technically mitosis because this part is just your cell doing normal stuff and being normal. This is like the cell reproducing. At the very end, we've got to make sure we cut it to make sure they're not connected anymore, and that's this last part. Cytokinesis, cell gets split into 2. I drew some scissors for inspiration. I'm going to teach you interphase, what a cell looks like when it's doing prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase, and finally when it cuts at the end. Please note that while your cell does normal stuff, the DNA molecule is being copied, and it is not in a braid yet. We're just getting ready at all times. You right now have to eat, a big breakfast because all day long your cell is copying 3 billion bases. Put a new one on, put a new one on, put a new one on. 3 billion of them to get ready so that 1 cell can split and become 2.